I said, CityLit does all of these brilliant things and all of these courses in 7 days a week, 46 weeks a year, 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And what we've done for the last decade is to highlight people that we believe contribute either to something that we do and or to adult education and the education of adults as a whole. And that's why we devised the idea of having fellowships. The fellowships are now in their 12th year. Christine Kinnear chairs the panel that chooses them. It's a very august group of key stakeholders in the college get together in November. Let us go out. It's like something in the royal family, but even better. And we tell people that they've been asked to be a fellow here. Russell joins a very, very illustrious group from Princess Anne to Grayson Perry to Lulu to Gillian Anderson to Dame Mary Beard. They represent, and actually David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary. So David is my favorite story at the moment because David was a mere backbencher when we made him a fellow. He is now Foreign Secretary. I'm not saying there's a causal link,
right?
But, you know,
okay.
we can assume. They all represent different aspects of the college, different bodies of work. As I said when you were here the other night and putting together the exhibition that we'll talk about a little bit later, I said you're a bit of a custody battle. You've obviously got a huge body of work in the performing arts, both on the theatre and in film and television. But also you contribute hugely to visual arts and the propagation and the understanding and the democratization of visual arts. So the School of Performing Arts and the School of Visual Arts kind of share you, which is quite a special thing for us. So tonight we're going to have a chat.
Yeah.
At some point we're going to throw it open to the audience if you behave yourselves. And we're going to talk about Russell. And actually a bit about your life, your history, and kind of what makes you tick. So, welcome.
Thank you.
As a fellow. Well, you're not actually a fellow for another 35 minutes.
Okay.
So you've got to get the plaque and the picture with Christine.
Okay.
But until then, it just means he keeps on really good behaviour. Born in Essex, went to local schools, very supportive parents about your various whims.
True.
Had various ideas of what you might be and what you were interested in?
I started, and by the way, this is such a privilege and very unexpected, so thank you very much for this. I started off, I was interested in everything as a kid, but I was really interested in history. And I started off thinking I was going to be a history teacher. And I had a metal detector, and I used to go off and find bits of old fence and think it was a Saxon sword, and take it into school, and she'd be like, that's just a bit of fencing, Russell. And I'd be like, no, it's a sword. And I used to find like coins and fossils, and I collected everything. And my mum used to take me to this shop called Collectors Forum, which doesn't exist anymore, in Romford in Essex, every Saturday. And it was just cabinets full of knickknacks, bric-a-brac, but all like old medallions and bits of pottery, and there'd be like a chamber pot in there and an iron, like a metal iron, and all Victoriana stuff. And I was just fascinated as a kid, and I collected everything. And then I also did gymnastics on top of this, so I was doing a lot. And then one day at gymnastics, there was a guy called Desmond Askew, who was an actor, who was in Grange Hill, and he'd been brought along because his auntie was involved in gymnastics, and he was doing meet and greets, photographs. And I remember being like, oh wow, you're a real life actor. And suddenly something clicked, and I went, that's what I want to do. And there was a possibility of that. This kid from Essex was on TV, and my mum was like, how'd you do that then? And she said, I went to Sylvia Young's theatre school, which is in Marylebone. And I was at junior school at this point. And I went and had all the meetings at Sylvia Young's theatre school, and they were like, yep, you can come and join. And my dad was like, absolutely not. He was anxious that I wouldn't get an education, and my desire to be an actor would never come to fruition properly as an adult because there's no possibility models. I think at that time, I think the thing that's important for anybody is to have a possibility model. And I think as a gay man, there wasn't possibility models for my parents to recognise that. And as an actor, there wasn't anyone who was doing it apart from this guy who was on Grange Hill. So I went to regular school, but I went to drama clubs every night of the week, every weekend, and I got a kids agent. And then I kept going, and then when I was 18, I did a play at Chichester Festival Theatre, which I nearly didn't do, called The Recruiting Officer. And there I met an actress called Deborah Gillette, and I was ferociously reading plays, and I was obsessed with a playwright called Patrick Marber, and he'd written a play called Closer, which then became a film with Julia Roberts and Clive Owen and Jude Law and Natalie Portman. And I was talking to her, and she's going, "You read a lot of plays, Russell?" I said, "Yeah, I love plays. I love reading plays more than books," because I would sort of act it out. And she went, "What's your favourite play at the minute?" I said, it's a play by Patrick Marber called Closer. Have you heard of him? She went, "That's my husband." And I was like, "Oh, right." And she went, "And he's over there," because it was like around like opening time. I was like, "Oh God." And he was still with Sam Mendes. And I was just like, this is too much. And he wrote a play called Howard Katz, that Ron Cook was in, and Paul Ritter, who's passed now, and Ashley Jensen was in that. And he wrote a part for me in that when I was 19 in the Cottesloe Theatre at the National, which is now the Lloyd Dorfman Theatre. And I got with my agent, who when I was 19, who I'm still with now, and I'm 43 now, and we've had this like professional marriage for that long. And theatre was the reason and the way that I was able to transition from kid to adult. I've covered a lot there. You just said Essex.
Essex, yeah.
Right.
I was going to dwell on the metal detector.
Oh yeah. We could just talk about the metal detecting if you want.
But actually, you're incredibly well read. You've got a huge interest in art, etc. But, and this is, adult education colleges, school didn't fit with what you were trying to be and wanting to be. You didn't get the opportunity. They didn't give you the flexibility that you would want to actually follow your passion.
Well, they probably would have done, but my school was very much, if you were enthusiastic about anything apart from football, then you were gay. If you're enthusiastic about anything apart from football, then you were singled out as weird. And I was already an actor, so I already had I was already vulnerable to that. And I pretended to be dumb, and I would be naughty, and I'd try to make people laugh, and I'd get kicked out of the class, and I'd be outside the lesson going, I really wanted to know about T.S. Eliot, but here I am, and I just wait to get called back in, and they thought I was stupid. And I played up to that, because it was a technique of survival. And I think the best thing that ever happened to me was coming out as a nerd. When I realised I was a complete geek, and I went, this is who I am, as well as being gay, my life changed completely, because it opened up to me, and I was like, oh, this is good. All the things that I thought I had shame about, that I thought was a negative, that I'm interested in culture, that I want to read poetry, that I want to read books, that I want to go and see that play, that I want to get into that museum. All those things were seen as like weak. And when I realised that those things were actually the things that made me, and they were a gift, that's when my life changed.
So when Russell opened the exhibition the other night, I'd taken him around, and my colleagues say when I get on the subject of City Lit, I tend to waterboard people with the amount of information and the passion of it. And so I'd waterboarded Russell for about 2 hours, dragging him around all different classes. He saw jewellery classes, he found out all of the different things we were doing. And then as he kind of says, look, this is a great exhibition, I'm delighted, and I found out so much about City Lit today. He was quite polite about how he'd found it out. And he goes, I really think this is the home of the nerd. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to be an interesting marketing campaign. I'll have a word about that. But actually, the way you describe it, it probably is, because everybody here has their passion. No matter what subject it is, you want to become the Sanskrit expert. You want to, and actually, there's something lovely. You kind of got it early, that fanaticism about a subject or a set of subjects. But most people, they kind of weave into it in various points in their lives. And one of the great things about adult education is if you've got a place like City Lit or one of the other great colleges around, you can come and do something that often they didn't teach at school. They didn't teach Korean at school, at my school. So you can come and do that here, but you can't do that in so many places around the country. So it is quite a gift to be
It is a gift, but it's also working out what you like.
Yeah.
And that takes time, or I knew early on I wanted to be an actor, but for many people it takes a long time to work out. I saw it as a gift. I think the hardest thing for a kid is to know what you want to do. If you know what you want to do, then you're great, because you go, okay, that's what it is. If you leave school and you're like, I don't know what I like, I don't know what I'm interested in, it's scary. And I knew, and I was blinkered. And I think that was a absolute gift to me from the universe, just going like, there you go follow that path. But if you're enthusiastic about something and a place like this encourages that enthusiasm, it's just magic, isn't it? You don't have to feel like outside or weird. If it's like all these sort of eccentricities that you have, this thirst for knowledge, for being educated, for being in lessons, for connecting with your colleagues about, talking about these really nuanced subjects which you cover here, it's so freeing and wonderful.
So you get into theatre. So lots of people want to be actors.
Yeah.
And they are either not as talented as they could be, or don't get the breaks, or just the luck, or whatever it might be. You obviously had a combination of great talent, but also you found your path, and obviously you get into various plays. The History Boys is the big break.
Yeah.
And I still think I didn't know it was you, but I saw it at the National when it came out. I then watched the film, and it was a revelation. I mean, I love Alan Bennett to bits, and it must have been so special because Alan Bennett, one of the great playwrights of the 20th century, and it's at the National Theatre, and how did you feel about all of that going on at the same time?
That play, so I was already at the National. I'd been there a year and a half, and I was pretty tired, but I was loving my time there. And then this play come up, and we went and read it at the National Theatre Studio, and it was about 3.5 hours, nearly 4 hours long, and it was so dense, and I hadn't got a clue what it was. And then when it got offered to me, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about it. And my agent was like, darling, you're doing this play. I was like, okay, fine. So it was only originally booked for like 40 shows, and then it kept getting extended. But we didn't know what the play was. We were in this rehearsal room with the late Richard Griffiths, Alan Bennett, Nicholas Heitner, Francis de la Tour, learning about poetry, learning about the prose, learning about all these great writers and all these references. It was like being at uni. And then we didn't know if it was funny. We didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until we went out on stage for that first preview that we went, oh, my God. And there was a line where I get asked, Rudge, my character gets asked, Rudge, how do you define history? And I say, how do I define history? It's just one fucking thing after another. This wall of laughter went up, and I sat there and I was like, well, this feels nice. And I thought, don't smile. And I could see the other boys going, fuck. He got that line. But that play, performed over 600 times. You end up going mad. And when we was on Broadway, I'm sort of nostalgic about it, but James Corden always reminds me, who was in the cast, that I used to fantasize about getting stabbed on the subway, just a surface wound, just so I could have a show off. Legit, because you go crazy. So we came straight back from Broadway. We went to the premiere in Odeon Leicester Square. Prince Charles, now the King, was there. Camilla Parker Bowles, now the Queen. And it was just like a whirlwind. And I remember watching the film going, this isn't the same as the play. And then hadn't touched it since. And then about a year and a half ago, I watched the film again. I thought, oh, let's see what this is like. Within 5 minutes, I was crying my eyes out for the nostalgia of that time. But also because I understood so many themes. There's so much heartbreak, loss, longing, loneliness. There's so many emotions in there that as a 22, 23-year-old, 24-year-old, I was like, I don't really know what they are yet. And then I watched that and I was like, oh my God, he's so clever. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. And it was so painful, but how brilliant that a man like that this film can grow with you. That's how good he is as a playwright, that what I experienced then with it and what I experience now are two very different things. And I'm sure in like another 15, 20 years when I watch it again, I'm going to feel all the other emotions of it.
It's amazing because yeah, I would say, well, it was Alan Bennett. It's obviously going to be a success, but not everything always is.
No.
And it just caught something. It really became...
It was like zeitgeist, yeah, for sure.
So, and the fact, as a young man, you're not only performing at the National Theatre in a big role, then you're in Broadway, and then you're in a movie. And that, all out one thing, is also quite a bonus as well. I mean, being stabbed on the subway, yeah, probably a bit of an extreme way of getting out.
Do you think?
Yeah.
All right.
But it was, it must have been so exhilarating. And as you say, transferring from kind of stage to, it was probably quite, as a film, was it easy to do?
Yeah, we shot it in 4 weeks,
Yeah.
and because we did it during the summer holidays at a school, because obviously all the kids aren't there. And then we sort of finished the play, did the radio recording, did the film, and then went off and did the world tour, 'cause it wasn't just Broadway. We started off in Hong Kong. There's my friend Rob. You can sit at the front there, Rob. Hong Kong, New Zealand, Sydney, and then we went to New York. But we were so spoiled at that time, and Richard Griffiths and Francis Delatour were like, this doesn't happen all the time, and we were all like, yeah, every play, this happens with every play, this happens with every show.
So you talk about James Corden, obviously gone as great, but actually it was an incubator for a whole generation of amazing talent.
Well, the fact is 20 years and we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about it, and when I go back to New York, people still stop me in the street, and they're like, oh, the History Boys.
And the thing is, I was just reviewing your kind of film history, television history, play history. You're actually quite young, but you've done a hell of a lot. I mean, it's actually quite amazing how much stuff you've done. Often you see actors and they've been in that film and then there's a 2-year gap or whatever. You work a lot and you balance a lot. And
yeah, I wish I hadn't done sometimes as much as I have done. I think I've made choices earlier on, and I'm like, I wouldn't have done that if I'd really thought about it. And that's not being negative. Everything's like part of the journey and made me who I am and gave me the skill set.
Please don't tell me you'd have turned down being a werewolf.
No, not being human. No, but there's some things on IMDb, if I could go through and just tip-X those out, that'd be great. But I'm not going to tell you what they are. But I think I've always been very much like just wanted to work. Just give me work, give me a job, let me learn, let me meet people. And when I was at the National, I would be part of the National Theatre Company, and the National Theatre Studio would always have workshops or play readings or development, and they don't pay you if you're part of the company. I'd be there day in, day out, do the play in the evening, then go the next day and do like this random, workshop where musicians are playing tabla and we're doing improv, and then something else with Simon Stevens, or developing this other play with David Eldridge, or working with Rufus Norris before he ran the National. And so I was able through that to sort of grow up in theatre, which has been the greatest privilege, the culture of that, and grow up and experience all these people when they're emerging and I'm emerging, and now we're all at this stage where there's like history to us.
The interesting bit as well is, for a British actor, you've done well in the States, and that's not an automatic translation.
No.
You've done Quantico, you've done American Horror, you did Looking, which is one of my favourite series of yours.
Me too.
And that's not an easy translation. Everything, oh, you're British, you just go over and they'll just fall at your feet like Richard Burton. But actually, it takes a special type of actor to be able to kind of go between the two.
I think before I got a job in America, it felt like it was never going to happen. And then once it happened, it then continued to happen. That was always the dream, the American dream. I don't feel that as much now in the current climate, but when I was younger, it was definitely, the American laughs. When I was younger, it was very much, that's what we did. And if you did it, then everyone was like, wow, you've made it. I think I've just been incredibly fortunate to have met people who responded to what I was doing and wanted me to be telling their stories. And that's always the greatest privilege. You know, I never take that for granted. And I feel like, again, something I'm realizing later in life is that the things that I find negative about myself, or I have found negative about myself growing up, insecurities, anxieties, we all have those, and we hide them, we try to hide them. But as actors, these things are part of you, and as much as you try and hide them, people see them. But the reason they keep coming back to you, the reason we see the same actors again and again and again, is because they allow us to project our own vulnerabilities on them, because they're releasing something. So I had dinner with, it's a name drop, Demi Moore, and she opened this up for me. I'm in Feud, Capote and the Swans. She's heaven. And we went for dinner, and I sat next to her, and I was like, you must be so proud of your career. And she's like, not really. I said, do you like what you do? She went, no, I can't stand what I do. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm so sorry. She went, no, it's a gift. I was like, how's it a gift? She went, because it keeps me going. I keep going, I'm going to be better next time. And the reason that I have that is the reason people love what I do, because I'm so like fragile and insecure and vulnerable. And she went, it's generous. It's my generosity to reveal my vulnerabilities. And I went, fucking hell. That is such a beautiful way, and it was such a invitation to be vulnerable and be open and not try and hide that when you're a performer. Because we always edit ourselves. You have a version of yourself that you want to be, and it takes many years to go, oh no, the thing that people are responding to is me, is the thing that I'm trying to not be.
And that's interesting because you do work a lot, and we see you, and actually you haven't gone just the Hollywood route, thank goodness. You play in both the ponds very well. You are such a good actor that you don't just go, oh, it's another Russell thing. Is within a couple of minutes you're not Russell, you're it. And I think that is what I think is fascinating, is that the variety of characters you play, you always slip into them very nicely. And I think that's unusual, because people do get typecast in your profession quite easily. So they're the superhero, they're the whatever. And the variety of what you do. I mean, do you deliberately choose, right, I don't want to do anything in America for a couple of years, I'm going to concentrate a bit, or is it more transactional that just stuff comes up?
There is choice, obviously, but a lot of the time it's what is presented to you. And now I'm at a stage where I'm actively creating projects. I'm working with, emerging directors, writers, producers, bringing stuff together that I really want to do. But it has always been chance and accident and responding to that. But it has to be the character, fundamentally. It has to be something that I think I know what I can do with that. And I've been given the opportunity multiple times to play all these different characters. And I got told, don't come out, you'll be typecast. And I remember thinking about how there's so many of us. There's so many gays. How can I be typecast? There's like billions of them. Can't I just be a different type of gay? No. But I did it. I got told to pin my ears back and don't come out.
Yeah.
And I've gone against both of those things.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm going to loop up. Actually, I was going to do Pride towards the end.
Okay.
But actually, you've given me a nice introduction on that. Is Hollywood historically? You look, actually, the TV series Hollywood from Netflix a couple of years ago, the closeted nature of 1950s Hollywood, and right the way through the AIDS era onwards. And even now, it's a surprise if an actor comes out. It's still not the same degree of comfort that people in other aspects of their lives. It's probably only marginally better than football, where nobody ever seems to come out. And actually, of course, you were in the past, which I thought was a great actual way of talking about that story. So why do you think Hollywood is that homophobic's not a right word, but insecure about it? Why are actors still told, yeah, you really don't want to play that, it'll narrow you down?
I think more than any other time in history, we've got more out people, and we've got more representation and more diversity. I think we're also having the opportunity to tell authentic stories by the people that the stories are about. Talking about trans people specifically, for many years, trans people were never played by trans actors, and now, on the backs of Laverne Cox, who is a possibility model who's changed the game, of Pose and the way we're going forwards, like what it feels like to be a girl right now is amazing on BBC iPlayer. You have to make stars of someone for them to be taken serious, and before there wasn't superstar trans actors, and now there are, and they're able to tell this story. Now, I don't know what the hell is going on in the world right now, and if that's, you know, civil rights, liberties, everything's being thrown up. It's a terrifying time. My responsibility, I feel like now, is to remain visible and out and remain a possibility model, which is what I didn't have, and I want to be that, and I take that very seriously, and I never used to. I think I used to be anxious about it, and I think that if you are part of any minority, whatever that be, and you become successful, you then become by proxy an ambassador. And I think that was something that I didn't know what to do with that, but now I know.
And how did that journey happen? How did you get more comfortable with it?
I think I began to feel safe in the world, feel secure in my friendships, understand myself more. Therapy is brilliant. I love you laughing. I think all those things, age,
Yeah.
I think, and the world, and I think now that we have to be louder than ever. I think many people may retract from being visible or talking about it. I feel like the opposite, and again I said it from previous position where I'm working and I get to be in that position to do that. But I feel the world is so scary right now and getting even scarier, and that it's so hot that if I can just be visible and that makes a difference to someone somewhere, that's really, really important. And to go back to your question about Hollywood, it's like the cha-cha-cha. You know, it's two step forward. It's like, that's what it feels like. And that's what politics are. And my great hero, and I always quote this, is Derek Jarman. And in the late 80s, he said, if you wait long enough, the world moves in circles. And he was saying this at a time when there was homophobia in journalism, Section 28, Thatcher's Britain, AIDS. We're 30 years later. Look where we are now, where the world is now, where human rights are being reversed, what's going on in America, transphobia in journalism, the absolute flippancy, the way that people talk about trans people, and it's all circular. And my hope is that we will come back to a more liberal time and come back to a more safer, less hot planet. Then we've got global warming, and then we've got climate change. But politically, and for us, it feels like you've got to have hope. And I feel like if I can do anything with my work and with my voice and with my platform, is just to be hopeful and be kind and show up. That's something that I really take serious.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting particularly with characteristics that aren't as obvious. So you're not necessarily obviously gay. You don't necessarily obviously have a stammer. So you use various characteristics that various people have. I've had Ed Balls in that seat, and Ed is a fellow, and his connection with City Lit, he is an interiorized stammer. And so it's a stammer, for those who don't know. It's not the ones that everybody characterize. It's not the fish called Wanda type stammer. It's the one where you have a block and the word just doesn't come out. And so it's not necessarily something that's obvious. And he started to realize he had this particular challenge when he was a cabinet minister. So he's like, something goes wrong sometimes when I'm speaking and I don't know what it is. And he talked to his dad, And his dad said, yeah, I have the same thing. I heard it on the radio with you the other day. You just froze. What went on? Did you forget your words? And he goes, no, they just couldn't come out. And anyway, his journey meant that his legislative assistant kind of started doing research and said, I think this is what you've got, this interiorized stammer. And CityLit is one of the world's sort of expert places on that.
Wow.
So he started to come here secretly as a cabinet minister for 3 years. The funny thing is our speech therapy department is truly awe-inspiring. It's changed so many people's lives. And actually, again, it's a generational thing because so many people of kind of Ed's generation didn't get the support at school that you might do now at a good school.
Yeah.
So it wasn't identified, it wasn't taken notice of. And so he's coming, but he's got the shame of it. I can't be a stammering politician. I can't be doing this. And of course, there was times at the dispatch box it had happened, and the Tories would be nasty to him, and they'd heckle him, going, "You don't know what you're saying," and stuff. But the way we teach stammering therapy is groups. And he's like, no, I can't do groups because people will then know. So he had one-to-one group therapy, which is really a fascinating concept. And his tutor, who's just a goddess, I mean, she's amazing, just worked with him and coached him, about you never cure yourself around your stammer. It's something that you learn abilities to manage it and work with it, etc. And he got more and more confident with it. And then at the point, and he tells this heartbreaking story of the fact he started to advocate as children's schools minister for for stammering for children, and he's got this whole program. And one day he's very proud of himself, he's launching this big stammering program. There's a bunch of young kids who stammer, and a dad comes up to him and goes, "You're a shit." And he like, all right, okay, Tory voter. And he goes, "You stammer, and you're not telling these kids that you stammer, and you should do." And Ed went home that night, and really it tore him apart. He just really, and he wrote to all the kids and said, "Sorry, I should have told you this." And then at that point started to have his story. And he's now, a drop of a hat, he will tell you about his stammer. And he's a marvelous advocate. He comes here a couple of times a year to do things. And it is, and I think being a gay man, it's my journey, took a long, long time because I'm significantly older than you. And it was horrible to be a kid in the 70s and be gay. And then in the 80s, it was horrible being a grown-up, being a gay, because of all the things that you said. And I eventually came out in the early 90s, which was kind of, people say, well, that was quite late. But it's not. It's when you're comfortable with it and when you feel that you can engage with society in the way that you think appropriate. And I think your story or Ed's story or whatever is people get there when they get there, and then if they can be a very powerful advocate and a very powerful spokesperson, that's something that's really quite magical. And whether people say, "Oh yeah, but that was a bit late, wasn't it?" I was like, no, not really. That was.
I reckon when Ed gave himself permission to be honest, it probably changed his life. It sounds like.
Oh yeah.
And that was probably his gift all along, and he was just couldn't see it. He got in his own way. And I feel like, you get told as a young gay kid, 1 in 10 of you are going to be gay, and it's so negative, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be the gay one. And now I'm like, I'm the gay one. I'm the chosen 1 in 10. You're all boring as fuck. I'm the gay one. Wow, thank you. You've chosen me. I'm part of this special members club. There's not many of us. Well, there is a lot, actually, in London. And it's like, that spinning that and going like, this is fucking great. It's the making of me. It's the reason I am who I am.
It's fascinating. I mean, do you look when you get offered parts? Do you go, is it a straight part, is it a gay part? What lens and what lenses do you put on in your acting?
It's the character. Yeah. I absolutely did when I was offered gay roles younger. Really consider if that was the right one, and when Looking come along, I was like 100%. This is it. This is where I'm just going to go for it. And again, that opened up incredible opportunities. And I was playing gay and being out at a time when many people weren't. We have so many amazing actors now who are so open, and it's brilliant. But there wasn't then, and I was sort of cleaned up. I got all the amazing roles that you're talking about, but everyone was sort of anxious to go near them.
It's interesting. I mean, looking, I think it was. I mean, I still am really pissed off that they didn't do a season 3.
Yeah, I know.
Because the characters were developed so well. And actually, what was wonderful was, as you say, yeah, people say diversity and they're the gays is like they're a homogenous bunch over in the corner.
Right.
We're all the same and we all wear the same clothes. And
Some of us do, but yeah.
But it's looking, I thought, was brilliant because it actually showed the diversity within the gay community, and that was brilliant. And actually, I was surprised how well it did with my straight friends. It was because it was bloody well written,
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
it was really, really well acted. I mean, your part, which I don't think was key in the first series, you kind of came on a few episodes.
I
into it.
originally screen tested. So Looking is about a group of friends in San Francisco, for those who haven't seen it. And Jonathan Groff plays the lead character of Patrick, and then Murray Bartlett played Dom. Murray Bartlett went on to win the Emmy for White Lotus and everything. And there's amazing other actors in it. I screen tested for Patrick. So I originally flown out to LA, and I knew Andrew Haigh, and he's a British director, All of Us Strangers, amazing guy. And it was between me and Groff in the end. So he would go in a room with a Dom and with an Augustine or with a Richie, and then I would do the same with other ones. And then the thing is, when you audition in America for a TV show, you already signed up when you screen test that if you get the job, you have to do it. So, I was waiting to find out, and I went back to London, and in the middle of the night, I got up to pee, might be too much information, and I checked my phone on Twitter, and it said Jonathan Groff is playing Patrick in Looking. So I found out via Twitter, not even via an agent, and I was gutted. And Andrew Haigh said, if the show gets picked up from the pilot, I'll write you a part. And you hear that a lot. I was like, cool, cheers, mate. Okay, let's see what happens. Then it got picked up, and I was like, so? And he said, right, will you put this scene on tape, Kevin, American? I went, all right. So I started doing it. And I went to Spotlight, which is the studios in Leicester Square where actors can go and audition and put things on tape. And I did it all American. I walked out and I went back in and I went, you know what? Let me just do one in English. Let me just do a British one because they're going to ask for it and I can't be asked to come back. They went, all right. So I just went, oh, hello, Patrick. How are you? Da, da, da. And they came back and they went, we love the Brit. We want the Brit. I was like, oh, great. So then flew out there. And my agent at the time was like, keep impressing them, buddy. And they will make you a regular in the second season. And I was like, all right, all right. And then I just had a lovely time and they went, will you come back as a regular? I was like, yes. And then the show ended.
Did you want to stab Jonathan Groff for getting the main part?
No, I love Groff so much. He is such a brilliant, wonderful, wholesome, generous man, heaven, and talented. No, I didn't. I liked him. I understood it. That's the thing as well, is that you understand as an actor as you get older, is that rejection, you take it so personally. It hurts. I would cry. I would be devastated when I didn't get jobs. Now I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the right person for that part, or you don't see me as that person, so I don't want to crowbar myself into something if it's against your vision of what you want this story to be or who you perceive this character to be. So now I have a real kind of like healthy mentality where I'm like, cool, that's not meant for me. And that's really freeing. That takes a long time and a lot of discipline. But it's really great because you just think, all right, and you move on.
It's interesting because the part that they developed for you was, I think, probably the most interesting acting part
Thanks.
of all of them. I mean, you performed it really well, but it actually was kind of, you're a bit of a bastard, but you're actually really nice, and it was kind of quite schizophrenic, so it was probably more depth to it, whereas Jonathan just had to play nice all the time. He was just lovely, so you probably got bored with that.
I can't answer that. I don't know.
I know. All right. I'm trying to give you an out there.
Oh.
Exactly.
I'll take it.
What of the classics, of the big films, if they got remade, or the big plays, what are the roles you would really love to play?
I find that really hard. There's roles that haven't been written yet. I want to play Alexander McQueen. I'd like to do him on camera, on film. I met him once in Soho in a bar, and I went up to him and went, you look like Alexander McQueen. And he went, I am Alexander McQueen. cool. And that was like, but I had this interaction with him. I would love to play him. I'd love to play Keith Haring. I'm too old. I think he died at 31. Depends how they light it, but I think I'm pushing it. You don't need to laugh that loud. I would love to play David Hockney. You know, because of the art, I'm obsessed with art, so I really have these sort of fascinations with art history people, the legacy of art, the lineage of art, and I would love to be able to tell those stories. So there's classic roles, but I want to keep evolving and telling these stories of these people.
So you're so easy to interview because you just give me the segue to the next bit, is
yeah.
your art.
Yeah.
So obviously, for lots of time, people know you as the actor, and you're great. And then over the last half a dozen years, people have started to see another side of you and see your fascination with art, and actually, as I said right at the beginning, that kind of democratization of art, we're trying to bring it to the people. So tell me the journey around that.
The quick journey is I loved cartoons. I discovered pop art. Roy Lichtenstein, Keith Haring, Andy Warhol. Realised I didn't need to grow up. I could still like cartoons because they're in museums, so that's adult. When I was 16, the Young British Artist movement was happening. A lot of them were predominantly working class. It felt like they were inviting me in. Before that, every artist I liked had died, or it felt very academic, very elitist, impenetrable, not for me. That's not for you. Then there was this group of artists who were sailing and soaring, and they were everywhere. And I thought, well, if they all sound like me, I can go to that gallery then, can't I? I used to walk into galleries, rush around with my head down and apologise for being there. Because I thought, I know you don't want me in here, but I really want to see the art, and I'm really sorry I took up the space. That was something that I wanted to change again, because I never heard anybody sounds like me talking about art in an enthusiastic way that wasn't slagging it off. I love it. It makes me so happy. And I wanted to create something that gave other people permission to be enthusiastic and love it as much as me and get excited as much as me. And my Talk Art co-star now, who arrived late, Rob in the front row, we'll be signing books afterwards out there, and you can tell him off for being late. Oh, fashionable late. Okay, fine. We met in 2008 in Edinburgh because my friend Tracy Emin, I say my friend, and she's my friend, was having an art show, and she invited me, and I turned up, and they went, "Are you Tracy Emin's youngest collector?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And they said, "Thank you so much for loaning that painting to the show." And I went, "I didn't loan a painting to the show." And they were like, "Oh, I thought you were Tracy's youngest collector." I thought, "Yeah, so did I. Who's this other youngest collector then?" And then she went, "This is Rob." And I was like, "I hate you." And then, but we sat, there was dinner, and then we sat together afterwards. And it's like the whole room just disappeared because me and him bonded over titles of Tracy Emin monoprints. How nuanced and geeky is that? And weird is that? Nerdy is that? But then it was like, okay, I've never found anyone else in the world to do that with. And then we completely just pushed each other on in our education. And he'd go, I like this, do you like this? I like this, I do like this. And we'd go on studio visits, and we'd go to galleries. And it's like we held each other's hands into art, and with each other, we had protection of each other because it was daunting. And you'd go to these art events, and people were mean. People were mean. And, you know, they were like, "What are you doing here?" That's what it felt like. And then in 2018, I wanted to start a podcast. Rob was like, "I don't know what that is. I don't think we are, we shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong." I said, "Just trust me, let's do it." So we started off in a studio, and we were just chatting with each other, and I wanted to call it Art Smack. And he said it's had drug connotations. So we didn't do that. And then we came up with Talk Art. And then the next episode, we invited Michael Craig Martin on as a guest. And he's, again, a very generous, wonderful man. And he was brilliant. And suddenly it was like our mums listened to it. And they said for the first time ever, they understood what we were in, why we loved it so much. And they said, "You should keep doing this." And we did. and it's had over like nearly 15 million downloads. We're like the number one arts podcast here and in the States. We've done 350 episodes. We've got our third book out, a kids book that comes out in October, and it's been a gift for my childhood self. If I'd had them books, if I'd had someone who sounded like me talking about art in this way, I would have been so much more confident to go into the Tate. And this sort of what we're doing is creating something that gives people permission to be nerds.
So, do you think the Tate and the National Gallery and all the other art exhibition, the big establishment places, are they getting better now about?
I would hope so, but I'm obviously on the inside now, so I experience it differently. But I would hope that, yes, they're very like focused on that. They were impenetrable. They were scary spaces, and we've always been an advocate for the artists want you to see the work. Remember that. These spaces, these white cubes around them feel daunting, but remember that the artist who's on the walls or sculpted or on video or is sound inside wants you to experience their work because they want to connect to you. That's what they're making it for. They're not making it, if they're good artists, for, you know, collectors or for people to put into vaults. They want to, they're political. They want people to connect. So just have that permission. I would hope that there are initiatives, and it's a different time now, and people are more focused on, you know, inclusion. That's the thing, is just being allowed or feeling like it. But, you know, people are still very daunted by art. Yeah. They say don't consider religion and politics when you're drunk. Add art to that. People get very angry.
So, you've got your own collection.
Yeah.
You're not the youngest owner of a Tracy
Sadly
Emin,
not.
apparently.
He's a year older than me, but yeah.
Not that you're bitter.
No, I'm
not. No. Elton and David have just had their big exhibition at the V&A of their collection.
Yeah, we interviewed them for it.
Yeah, no, and so I'm just wondering, do you show, is your collection for you, or is it for, how do you make that more widely seen?
I have loan works all the time. I have lots of things where the biggest privilege is that you have something that the artist thinks is an amazing representation of their practice, and they ask to borrow it to go into a museum or a tour and exhibition. And I'm like, yes, absolutely, 100%. This work is mine for the moment, and I live with it, and it's beautiful, and I put things in storage, or, you know, the term is rotates, you bring stuff in and out, and it's kind of, I'm an addict for it. It's kind of madness, but I every day it's like I live with this art, and it's like inviting guests in. It makes me very happy, but I'll be dead one day, and the thing about art is that it lives forever. The reason we know who we are is the art we left behind. This art is going to go into other collections, into other museums, you know. So I'm merely here and have the luck of being able to be with it right now, but it doesn't really belong to me.
And do you envisage kind of, just growing your collection? Does it go in any particular direction, or are you quite like, right, okay?
I try to have rules, but I always break my own rules, and that's the thing with art. I would love a space one day that's a not-for-profit space where I can curate exhibitions, show my own work, open the space up to emerging curators or artists, or that would be like a little Kunsthalle somewhere, would be incredible. And I don't think it's that like far away. I don't think it needs to be a huge space. You can do it in like a living room. You can do it in like a small office, or
just even a gallery.
Window. Just even a window. You know, if you just had like a rotating exhibition every few weeks, there was a new piece of art. That would be wonderful, and just to sort of share that enthusiasm and for other people to pick up on it. Every person in my life now who is close to me collects art and goes to galleries and museums when they never did before. Every single person. And that's happened because of the enthusiasm that me and Rob have with our podcast, and because of how we've made it accessible for the people around us and exciting, and they get it. And we've opened, you know, there's these gatekeepers. We're not the gatekeepers, but we've got a little door around the side. And if you just come this way, you can come in here, and then you can just get in the back and nobody knows you're here, and then here we are.
Just to finish before I turn to the audience, is you curated our wonderful kind of Pride exhibition with the marvelous Ian Tutnott, who's sitting somewhere in the audience.
Love Ian.
We love everybody.
Everybody
Get
loves
a
Ian.
queue. Everybody at City
Yeah.
loves Ian.
Saint Ian.
Tell us about the exhibition. So when we adjourn for our drinks after this, what should people be thinking as they go in?
Well, this come about because of Alan Billington, who's here today. We did a documentary, myself and Susie here. We made a documentary on an artist called David Robilliard, who died of AIDS in 1988. And I discovered his work when I was around 36, and he died at 36, and that really scared me when I discovered it, because it's only a matter of timing that, you know, I'm still here and he's not. And if I'd been born 10 years earlier, I might have, you know, known him, been his lover, hung out with him, or it might have been me that died. And Alan was really dear friends with David, so we had the privilege to interview Alan. And Alan saw how passionate myself and Susie was in making that documentary and how important it was. No money. It was just purely a passion project because I felt compelled to make sure that more people knew his poetry. He's an amazing writer, and his prose and his art. And then I don't know the whole process, but my understanding is that you go out every year and you say who should be a fellow, and Alan put me forward. And that was kind of so lovely and unexpected. And then we had a conversation, and I said to you, you were like, what do you want to do for your fellowship? And I said, well, how about I curate an exhibition with artists who have studied here or are currently studying here? And you guys were like, you and Amber were like, yeah, let's absolutely do that. And then we found a theme. Well, we didn't find a theme. We sent out artists, and we were talking about a Pride theme. And I didn't want to make it solely queer. I wanted to make it something that was open to more interpretation. And then we got like 150 submissions.
Yep.
It's amazing. I met a few people who didn't get picked, and they were very unhappy with me.
Yeah, just think about the 120 who didn't get picked. Ian has to work with them
They're
every
all
day.
here. Yeah, exactly. And hello. And so I sort of went through 3 or 4 times through the images, and then the things that stuck out every time I pulled out, and then I tried to work out what that was, and it was this feeling of home. There was a lot of domestic objects, a lot of figures within a living room or a bed, or there was something that felt very homely about it, and that was the theme. And home, homo, so the pride energy, but the home is so important, the home, but feeling at home in yourself, feeling at home in the world, feeling at home with your friends, with your family. Yes, the physical building, but it also can be perceived in so many other ways. So then these works come together, and they were all there, propped up against the wall and on plinths and stuff, and then we just started. And I think when you curate, you've just got to start, and Ian was amazing with me all day. And then we just sort of got it up, and then there it is.
Yeah, it's tremendous, and it gets a chance. Actually, the lovely thing about having the theatre and the gallery together, we are able to kind of go from one to the other for a little glass of wine or whatever afterwards. So, we've talked about theatre, television, movies, art, Pride, you, Essex, school. So we've covered a lot. If we could have the lights gently up.
Yes.
This is the bit where you're always a little bit nervous in case everybody just sits there with their arms folded saying, I'm not sure. That's probably a bit too much. Have you got any questions? Yeah. We've got a gentleman here. Have you got any others so we can make sure we get the microphones sort of flowing?
Hello. Hello? Does it work? Yes. Hello, Charlie Trevor. I'm fascinated by your journey, and I'm a huge fan of city lit because enabled me over the last 4 years to discover my own art. And you only mentioned once, and in very much passing, wonderful phrase, the art you produce, collective, you act, you poetry. What art do you actually make yourself, and why not come to City Lit?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I would love to go back into education because, as I've said multiple times, I'm a geek and a nerd, and I want to learn, and I'd love to do like curatorial studies, get better at it, and do art history. That would be something that I would absolutely love to do. An artist myself, my art is my storytelling, whether that be acting, writing. I don't have any ambitions to make physical art or have an exhibition. I do like basically telephone doodles for charity events, like you on a postcard. It's normally a selfie with sticky out ears and a dog, and then they go on eBay and make like 30 quid for something. But I don't have any desire. I wanted to be Wolfgang Tillmans, the photographer, when I was really young, and I photographed my pants over a radiator or socks on the floor, and it was a load of old shit. So I said no. So I love being a conduit to discovery for artists and keeping artists on pedestals and they're my heroes and they're the people that when we do a lot of live events for Talk Art, and when we're there, I am so zoned in on making sure that the guest, who may be an artist, most times an artist, is really comfortable and feels safe and can give a lovely interview, that I forget that I have a profile, people know who I am. And then afterwards, people will go like, "Oh, can I get a selfie with you?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm an actor. Yeah, hello." It's like a completely different side of my brain, and it's so lovely to be able to have that, where I can just be, a facilitator for, discovery. That's wonderful.
Can we just talk about your ears?
Yeah.
You've mentioned them a number of times. I've been brought up never to talk about certain things, but at every straight woman I know who I've said I'm interviewing tonight, A, says they love you, and B, says, I love his ears. So thank God that you didn't get them pinned back. But are they part of your
Trademark.
persona? Yeah. I mean, talk about your ears.
Okay. I have never. I mean, I got called all the names under the sun: wingnut, FA Cup. You've left the car doors open. Take off. I've been called all those things. Big ears, obviously. But I never, as a kid, it never bothered me. I liked them. I don't know why. I should have had insecurities about them with the amount of times that people pointed out, your ears stick out. It's like, oh, thanks for telling me, I didn't realise. And it's become a trademark, I guess. And I think we're in like the year of the ears. There's lots of Josh O'Connor, for example. There's a big celebration for, sticky out ears. Mine aren't that big, they just stick out. But I've always been quite fond of them. They've never been something that I've tried to reject.
So you've tried to insure them?
Well, I've thought about this because like
trademark.
J-Lo's done a bum, hasn't
yeah.
she? And I think, if I lost an ear, I don't know if I did like a Van Gogh, I don't know what would happen. So yeah, I am. Is there any department here that does ear insurance courses or? That's a no.
It's an opportunity.
Oh yeah, come on.
We do pretty much everything.
It's niche.
The gentleman there.
Hello, Russell.
Hello.
I was at where you were about 3 weeks ago, actually.
Oh, congratulations.
And my question is, are you a closet art historian, and would you like to be one?
If I wasn't an actor, I would definitely be doing more in the art world. I mean, in a parallel world, a different constellation, I'm running the Tate. I would love to run a not-for-profit institution, although they do make a profit, but I'd love to run a space that was for art, that I could then curate and work with people and facilitate ideas and conversations, and absolutely 100%. But I'm also having that opportunity with Talk Art. It's just not a physical building. I'm creating a space for information and for ideas and talking to people, and it's a time capsule. Museums, galleries, you're looking at all different times. We're talking to contemporary voices, and it's a time capsule. When we had COVID, we went into overdrive. We were doing like 3 a week, and it was an amazing focus, but that sort of time talking to people about how they were coping creatively in that space of time is like, I feel like that we should donate those episodes to some museum archive because they're so important about like that moment and what as artists, as storytellers we do in trauma, in crisis. So yeah, but it's yes, I would love to, but I don't have time.
By the way, so yeah.
Oh yeah, great.
So we have many amazing tutors. Leslie is like a cult level figure here in terms of art history. And his new book, which I will plug shamelessly like I did 3 weeks ago, The Foreign Invention of British Art, is now in all good best-selling bookshops and sold about 70 copies just here the other night.
Have you got any more you can sign next to us? Great. Oh yeah, have you? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
No, it's quite amazing. And again, Leslie's another example of somebody who kind of the school thing didn't work so well, but followed an absolute passion.
Yeah.
And as an amazing communicator around his love. And I think that really does come out with everything you've sort of said this evening, is your passion for acting, your passion for art. It's that passion that obviously kind of drives you, but
Yes.
also makes you so engaging because you've got something you want to tell the world. I love the bit where you just said, everybody I know now has art. And that's great. Either you kind of blackmailed them or threatened them, or it's the sheer love of it. And I think it's probably the latter.
I think it's contagious.
Yeah.
I think if you're passionate about anything or enthusiastic, it's contagious. You could be talking about anything. I can't stand football, but if you talk about it in such a passionate way, I'm listening. If someone is genuinely, authentically into something, then it's intoxicating.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now get to the semi-serious bit, which is we're going. Oh no! Sorry, I didn't see. Oh God, it's one of our governors. It's Clancy. Clancy is what our student governor,
Oh, wow.
and is an amazing artist in her own right.
Oh, mate.
So sorry, Clancy, the lighting's a bit off. So yeah.
Russell, thanks very much for coming. I just wanted to ask you if you were someone who had never bought a piece of art, particularly an original artwork, but wanted to start a collection, what would be your advice and where would you go to buy it?
So my advice, and it sounds a bit nepotistic, but Rob Diamond, who's my talk art partner, he runs a print making, oh the lights have gone, I can't see. He runs a printmaking company called Counter Editions based in Margate, and they have an incredible print studio, edition making studio. If someone says to me, I mean there's so many different ways of collecting. I'll try and be quick with this. Are you ready to? We're ready to?
No, it's
wrap
fine.
up?
Go,
Okay.
go.
So if somebody is looking to collect art, they're like, what should I be buying? Now there's different ways about this. If they're adamant they want to buy something, I go look at countereditions.com, and there are so many international, brilliant, amazing, world-class artists on that site. Go through and choose 5 or 6 things that you're drawn to, and they might pull up a sculpture, a photograph, a painting, and I can then go, okay, I think you like this sort of work. So if you bought an edition from there, brilliant. But if you're looking for something original, how about this sort of artist or that sort of artist? There's other ways of collecting. A lot of my friends and a lot of people I meet have made a lot of money and they want to invest in art. And they're like, oh, I've been offered this, Damien Hirst or this Anish Kapoor for like X amount of money. And I'm like, that's lovely. But the amount of money that you got there, imagine if you went round to student shows and spent that on 5 or 6 students and supported them at that stage in their career and treated your ability to acquire work as a patronage, that you're actually investing in somebody's potential and somebody's future. And if you collect that artist's work, well, not only are you making them feel like they can make art and someone wants to buy it, you're funding their studio fees, their materials. You can use your social media to amplify them, to look after them, to take them out to dinner, to, be their friend. And then as they progress, you can grow with them and you can collect a work from their next show, or you can pay to support their book. You don't need lots of money to do that. If you don't have the money to do that, you can just follow these artists and use your voice to direct attention to them. And then suddenly there's so many artists that I've you know, met very early on in their careers and really got behind, and we're 10 years down the line, and they've got exhibitions at like museums around the world. And I was there at the beginning, and it's such a joy to have gone on that journey and to build these really enriching friendships over that period of time, and to have been there as a friend and as a patron. And then these works are worth money. But they were an investment in the person, in the artist, in the creative then, and now they've become these other things. But that is, for me, the best gift you can do is get behind someone's creativity and propel them.
And in that final bit, if there was ever a reason why he's earned the right to have a fellowship at this college, you just said it all. Supporting people's dreams, aspirations, ensuring people have that opportunity at whatever point in their life, whether they be 19 or 94.
Yeah.
That's what we're about, and that's why we are so delighted to have you as part of our community. And I'd like to ask Christine Kinnear to present you with your fellowship.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christine. Thank you.
Do you want to?
Put his radio mic down. It's embarrassing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This really means a lot. It's very, very, very special.
Well, you join and add to beautifully a great collection of individuals that has something to do with this amazing institution. Come and join us for a drink to celebrate his fellowship, and there's a few books to sign, and there's Rob to get to know, and there's people to enjoy yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.